Winter may be a time of warmth and joy for some, but for others, the cold brings with it a chilling darkness. The laughter of children making snow angels fades into the eerie silence of a snow-covered forest. The glow of Christmas lights can't quite reach the shadowy corners of an old house, where the wind whispers tales of terror. Tonight, I'll share with you 3 disturbing, true winter horror stories that will freeze your soul. These are real accounts of terror, isolation, and the unexplainable sent in by viewers like you. So grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself for the cold truth of what lurks in winter's shadow. Our first story takes us to a remote cabin in the snowy wilderness of Montana. Imagine, if you will, the vast expanse of white, the only sounds the wind howling through the trees and the soft crunch of fresh snow underfoot. It's here, in this secluded paradise, that Ellie and her husband Mike decided to spend a quiet weekend away from the chaos of city life. They rented a cabin, a rustic escape nestled deep in the forest, miles from the nearest neighbor. The silence was a welcome change, the isolation a balm for their weary souls. On the second night, as a blizzard raged outside, Ellie noticed something unsettling. Footprints, fresh in the newly fallen snow just outside their window. They seemed to appear out of thin air, leading directly to their front door, but stopping abruptly, with no sign of retreat. Who, in this desolate landscape, could be approaching their sanctuary? Mike reassured her it was probably a hunter or a lost traveler seeking shelter from the storm. But Ellie couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled upon her like a shroud. They locked the doors and went to bed, the storm's fury lulling them into a false sense of security. Around midnight, Ellie woke with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. The sound of faint tapping, rhythmic and insistent, pierced through the howling wind. It was coming from the window, the one right next to where she lay. Fear, icy and paralyzing, gripped her. When she finally gathered the courage to look, her breath caught in her throat. There, just outside the window, bathed in the eerie glow of the moon reflecting off the snow, stood a man. His face, pale and gaunt, was pressed against the glass, his eyes wide and unblinking, staring into the room with an intensity that sent shivers down Ellie's spine. She screamed, waking Mike, but by the time he stumbled to the window, the man was gone. The next morning, they found more footprints, circling the cabin like a predator stalking its prey, but no sign of anyone nearby. They cut their trip short, haunted by the memory of the ghostly figure at the window. Some mysteries are better left unsolved, buried beneath the cold, unforgiving snow. Our next story comes from the frozen expanse of northern Maine, where the beauty of a winter wonderland conceals a chilling tale of disappearance. Picture a vast, frozen lake, its surface a mirror reflecting the steel-gray sky above. This is where Jake and his friends, a group of young men seeking adventure and camaraderie, decided to spend a day ice fishing. They set up their tent on the thick ice, the sound of their laughter echoing across the frozen wasteland. They drilled holes in the ice, their lines disappearing into the dark depths below, hoping for a catch. The hours passed in a blur of camaraderie and shared stories, the snowfall growing heavier, blanketing the landscape in a pristine white shroud. As evening approached, casting long, eerie shadows across the ice, Jake decided to head back to the truck for more supplies. He walked the quarter-mile to the shore, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air, the only sounds the crunch of his boots on the snow and the distant murmur of the wind. But as he reached the truck, a shiver ran down his spine, a prickling sensation that something was amiss. He heard it then, faint but distinct, footsteps crunching in the snow behind him. He spun around, his heart pounding in his chest, expecting to see one of his friends following him. but there was no one there. The vast white expanse stretched out before him, empty and silent. He dismissed it as a trick of his imagination, the wind playing games on his nerves. He grabbed the supplies and turned back towards the lake, but a sense of unease settled over him once more. In the distance, barely discernible through the swirling snow, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A figure, tall and imposing, stood near their tent, its silhouette stark against the white landscape. He quickened his pace, his heart hammering in his chest, a growing sense of dread washing over him. As he finally reached the spot where their tent stood, his blood turned to ice. His friends were gone, vanished without a trace. The tent lay ripped open, its contents scattered across the ice like confetti. Panic seized him. He called out for his friends, his voice a desperate cry swallowed by the wind, but only silence answered him. He ran back to the truck, his mind racing, his every instinct screaming at him to flee this place. Reaching the truck, he slammed the door shut, his chest heaving, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Fresh footprints, large and menacing, led away from the truck, disappearing into the dense, unforgiving woods. Our final story takes place in the rural countryside of Yorkshire, England, where the charm of an old farmhouse couldn't mask the chilling presence that dwelled within its walls. In 2017, as one of the worst winters in memory gripped the region, Lucy and her family moved into the old farmhouse, its stone walls promising warmth and security. The house, with its creaky floors and low-beamed ceilings, had a certain charm, a sense of history whispering from every corner. But there was an undeniable eeriness that permeated the air, a feeling that they were not alone. The attic, a dark, cavernous space filled with the remnants of previous occupants, was a source of particular unease. No one dared to venture up there, as if an unspoken agreement had been made to leave whatever resided in its shadows undisturbed. One night, as a fierce snowstorm raged outside, Lucy woke with a start. A soft humming, barely audible at first, filtered through the darkness, weaving its way into her dreams. She assumed it was her young daughter, her voice often carrying through the old house. But when she checked her daughter's room, her heart pounding in her chest, she found her sound asleep. The humming continued, growing louder, its melody both haunting and unsettling. It seemed to be coming from the attic, its notes seeping down through the floorboards like a chilling draft. Lucy's husband dismissed it as the wind, its mournful cry playing tricks on her tired mind. But Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. A few nights later, the family dog started barking hysterically at the attic door. His growls were deep and guttural, his usually wagging tail tucked between his legs. Lucy's husband, his patience wearing thin, grabbed a flashlight and stormed towards the attic door. Moments later he came back, his face ashen, his body trembling. He wouldn't say what he saw, but he insisted they leave immediately. His fear was palpable, his eyes wide with a terror that sent chills down Lucy's spine. They moved out the next morning, leaving behind their belongings. The farmhouse, once a symbol of warmth and family, now stood as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic settings. A month later, Lucy discovered the previous owners had reported strange sounds and chilling sightings. One man even claimed to have seen a ghostly figure of a woman in the attic, her mournful humming echoing through the empty rooms. Winter is beautiful but unforgiving, a season that can trap you in its icy grip, both physically and metaphorically. These stories remind us that the cold isn't the only thing to fear when the snow starts to fall. Sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't see, the ones that lurk in the shadows of our minds. If you enjoyed this video, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Stay safe and keep your doors locked.